Hey everyone, welcome to another Good e-Reader roundtable discussion where Michael and Peter are going to talk about Sony and where did they come from, where are they going, and everywhere in between. Now, let's talk about where they're going, because Sony recently confirmed with us, and this was Sony Japan,
right,
their head of corporate communications. They said that they're getting out of the e-reader business for consumers.
Right.
So the PRS-T3 will be the last e-reader that they'll produce for consumers. And they intend on really going strong with the Sony digital paper. So this is 13.3 inches aimed at the business crowd that is enamored with PDF editing, viewing, documentation, lawyers, astronauts.
Now they're being very strict about this because they're not just selling to anybody. They want to make sure these are going into the right hands of people that will have some relevance to it. They don't want to just sell to some guy who goes, I need an e-reader, and they buy this for $1,100. They make sure that you're in the industry somehow, either entertainment, these are heavily catered towards law firms, accounting, you know, just things that are relevant, like review sites like us, news publications, things like that. They don't want to just sell to the everyday crowd because they don't have a support system in place for people that might not know how to use it. Like
customer service phone number, email.
I loaded my PDF, it's not working. Like, they don't want millions of people going, well, you know, what's wrong with this unit? It's terrible, it doesn't work, when it really does. It just needs to be in the hands of the right people who understand it.
Yeah, up until recently, Sony was selling this e-reader through a few specific partners, which were mainly entertainment in Hollywood and law firms.
Yes.
And then about a month ago, Sony started offering these directly, but it's a vetting process. So they basically interview you. What are you going to be doing with it? What's your level of technical knowledge? If you have a website, what is it? And they'll actually look at it, and they interview you, basically vetting out anybody that doesn't really understand what this product is.
And it's still not available on the site in the sense where you can just add it to your cart, check out, use your credit card, and away you go. You have to call in, you have to set up a Sony business account. It's a whole process.
Yeah, so it's definitely not the easiest reader in the world, which is really basically why it's not aimed at consumers. Well, Sony originally got involved in e-readers back in 2004. A lot of people don't know about this, where they almost predated the Kindle by 6 years.
Yeah, the Amazon Kindle was not the first e-reader, although a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, so Sony was the first company to establish a relationship with e-ink, which is the company responsible for all the screens in your Kindle, for your Sonys, for your Kobos.
You have all this stuff laying around.
Yeah, your Toledo Visions.
And this one, and this one, and
exactly.
this one.
So they were the first to really buy into the e-paper, and Sony was the first in a lot of regards. They were the first company to put out the PRS-700, which was the first front-lit e-reader. They had the first touchscreen e-reader. They really pioneered having a stylus with an e-reader.
First one with a stylus, exactly.
So they did the touchscreen, the front lit. They were the first company to use e-ink. I mean, they broke a lot of ground, and e-readers wouldn't be where they're at today without Sony. So it's kind of a shame that they have said that they're abandoning consumer e-readers, because what they kind of told me when I spoke with them is that e-readers right now are a race to the bottom.
Yeah, great. That's the way to phrase it.
Well, I mean, it's like, I remember not too long ago a Kindle DX was $399.
Oh, I got one here too. You name it, guys, we got it. There we go.
So when this first came out, it was like $399, and you look at like even 4 or 5 years ago, a Kindle was like $299, and now you can get a good one for about $69, $79. And so Sony just, they don't want to compete in a race to the bottom, because you can't offer solid hardware if you're using the cheapest processor, the cheapest RAM, the cheapest components. I mean, there are companies that do that, but Pocketbook is one, and their e-readers are super terrible. Ictaco does that as well.
Came out and said it,
and you know, a lot of these companies that try to compete using low-cost components, the e-readers tend to be very lackluster unless you're like an Amazon or Kobo or Barnes & Noble, that you're willing to take a loss on the hardware because you can make up with it with the ebooks.
Like the $69 Kindle.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, the writing was on the wall with Sony when they closed their ebook store.
Right. Oh, right. And they moved over to Kobo. That was the first sign.
They closed it in North America, and then they closed it in Europe. Sony Japan is the only market right now where they run an ebook store. All other Sony e-readers like the PRS 1, 2, 3, the Sony Daily, they've all received like firmware updates to tap into the Kobo ecosystem, and all former purchases that you've made on the Sony e-reader have been transferred to Kobo. Now, Kobo obviously doesn't have all the books that Sony had, so you lose some of your purchases, but you'll still be able to read them on your Sony e-reader. You just won't be able to actually buy any new books from Sony, but you have to just buy them with Kobo. So Peter, knowing all of this, you know, Sony was the first in many regards. They've abandoned consumer e-readers, gone to the business crowd. Where do you think Sony's going to be positioning themselves going forward in sort of the reading experience? I
think they're just, you know, the only thing they really have that, you know, we just did a poll recently. You conducted one on the blog that had... you can actually watch on our YouTube channel. You'll see the poll that we did. It was about 800 people entered, and it said, what do you feel most comfortable reading on? And a lot was tablets. And they have the Xperia tablet line, so I think if anything it will be catered towards that, because a very small percentage like reading on smartphones. Yeah. This is a Sony Z2, and it is a Sony product, and I don't like reading on it. I would sooner read on a tablet than anything, so yeah, I would say the Xperia tablets are the way to go, but Sony's had a weird production run if you really think about the way they started with all their e-readers up until the T3, because they started in Japan and then they started to spread out, and then they were very selective with their markets, because the 350, 650, and the 350 and 650 were available in Canada and the US, whereas the 950 was only the US. Then they moved into the Ts, which weren't available in the US at all, and were strictly Canada. So it was a very strange production run they had from start to finish, and it was kind of hard to really figure out what they were doing. And then they kept making 3 generations while all these guys were making glow light e-readers. They were very hard set on not making any glow lights, and then when they're
having cases with lights,
and then they made, okay, fine, let's give the T3. Everyone's like, glow light? No, built-in case. It's like, okay, well, you know, it was a very weird production run with their Reader brand. I mean, they innovated a lot of stuff, but I don't think they marketed it as well as they could have.
Yeah, I mean, Sony was really resistant to making an e-reader with glow light, much like the Kindle, the Nook, the Kobo, because of the ill-fated 700 that basically had super bad light, and I think that really jaded Sony management. I remember reading a comment from the VP of Sony Europe, and they said Sony will never release an e-reader with front light after the 700 fiasco. They would much rather sell lighted cases, book reading lights, because they said that they did a poll and they found out that consumers really didn't like front lights. It was just basically hard to buy an e-reader without them. But customers could live without them, is what Sony was saying.
And if you needed the light, they had the cases that bolted right onto the back. Yeah. Because the T2 and the T3 line had a removable back that you can take off and put different kinds of backs, different colors, different textures, leathers, hardcovers, or even lighted cases.
Yeah.
Gives customers the option.
Which actually helps Sony's bottom line.
And kept the dollars down, because the Sony T3S in its final production run was $79.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's really hard for me to say goodbye to Sony, because
the Reader at least.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been covering the Sony e-readers, you know, since like 2008.
Exactly.
So we've really seen their e-readers like evolve over time, and watch the e-reader industry go from like really nothing, which was all basically Sony, to Amazon becoming the juggernaut that they are. Watching Barnes & Noble, Kobo, watching like Bokeen with their Cybook line, Onyx, Icarus.
Even Tolino's making some decent stuff.
Yeah, I mean, some new entrants are coming to the market and making some really solid hardware. With Sony, though, I mean, you could expect that with most new phones and tablets that they release, they will have the Kobo bookstore built into it.
Right.
And Kobo's paying them a commission. So anytime that you actually buy a book using your Sony device with a Kobo app preloaded onto it, Sony gets a bit of a commission out of that. So you can think of it as like a kickback. Will Sony and Kobo ever make a co-branded e-reader?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like the whole Barnes & Noble Samsung thing.
Will Kobo, because of the relationship with Sony, just buy the e-reader division from Sony? Because the Sony operating system on all the e-readers are really tight.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, they're good.
I've never seen it crash.
No.
The reading experience is wicked.
PDF support's great. I know the Kindle Paperwhite has suffered from that since they released the second generation.
I think if there's any company that can benefit from a solid new operating system, it could be Kobo.
Yeah.
Because a lot of customers that use Kobo e-readers, they're not too impressed with the overall look and, you know, the form and function of the Kobo, like Glow, the Kobo Aura. The e-readers look great and it's great hardware, but the software side of things, a lot of people complain. And they complain to us because we're pretty well one of the only sources ever talking about e-readers. So a lot of people actually mistake us for being Kobo or Sony.
Because, what's wrong with you guys?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, I loaded a book on here and it's not working, or I bought this e-reader, I've been calling customer service to try to figure out, please help me. And it's like, please help me in all caps. That's always kind of funny.
That's what we deal with, guys.
Yeah, but you know, what do you guys think is in store for Sony? You know, I'm kind of thinking that Kobo might purchase either the operating system. Kobo and Sony may put out some co-branded e-readers. The future is pretty uncertain. All we do know is Sony closed its e-bookstore. They're not doing business anymore. All feature phones and tablets will have the Kobo app built into it for international launches, and Sony is focusing on business devices now in terms of their e-reader tech. And there's seldom a device that we've rated a 10 out of 10, but this was it.
Beauty. Funny thing about Sony, before we wrap everything up, the third of the Z phones, which is the Z1, Z2, you expect it to be the Z3, just got announced as the T3. Don't know what's going on there, because maybe they have more room for that name now that the T3 is discontinued for readers. I don't know what's going on with that. Just heard about it. Thought I'd drop it in there.
All right. So you've been listening to yet another good e-reader roundtable discussion. Today we've talked about Sony. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, drop them in the comment box below. If you think we've missed anything, let us know. And of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. So for Good e-Reader News, my name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Everybody take care.
So let's just do some tilts. Look at that extreme viewing angle. That's absolutely amazing. This is flexible e-paper. I wouldn't go ahead and test that, so to speak, and try to destroy it, but it does have some give. It kind of has to be, because in the middle that's kind of its weakest point, because it's the furthest away from any structural kind of plastic. So be really careful in the middle not to damage anything. Of course, you have the pen where you can draw